Let's talk about some contracts. I know that's not always a thing that we might want to talk about up front. It's important that you know this. My name is Andrew Finney, and my passion is helping you make sense of real estate. If you need help finding a top agent where you live, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, my contact info is below. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. Thank you. All right, my friend, let's take a closer look at seller contracts. In specific, we'll be taking a look at some of the details that go into them and the things that you should be aware of and the disclosures that you should be prepared to make to prospective buyers. Now, these contracts may be different from state to state, but there's a lot of things that are a lot the same about the contracts, from the property description to the financial arrangements to how escrow is going to handle the closing. There's a lot of things that are very similar. For very specific details about how seller contracts work where you live, please reach out to a trusted real estate advisor to review them. And please do read the fine print. If you need any help understanding contracts, your trusted real estate advisor is there to answer those questions and help you clarify that so that you're comfortable and confident every step of the way moving forward. You always reserve the right to have an attorney review the contracts with you as well at your own expense. The first thing are the property descriptions. So we're obviously going to be selling a property, right? So we need the property description. When it comes to a seller contract, it goes well beyond just the simple physical address of the property. It goes into the exact lot lines. It goes into the exact what's called an assessor's parcel number. In some places, they might just call it a tax number for that property. So it could be denoted different ways around the country. It's important to note that here in Las Vegas, Nevada, we simply call it an assessor's parcel number. We need to verify that the assessor's parcel number matches the property that you have, and any property description given is factual. So any information that you provide to us, we've got to be able to verify. As a pro tip here, if you need a little bit of help of figuring out exactly the dimensions of your room, Bosch makes a very helpful device, just like this one right here, if you want to take a closer look at it. It's very simple to purchase on Amazon or to go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot and get one. This one here is called a Bosch Professional GLM 40. And what it does is it simply zaps the dimensions of a room. It makes it super easy to use. I use it all the time in listings. I use it to help buyers verify dimensions of property. And I also use it to help buyers figure out what their furniture placement is, where they want it to go based upon the size of the furniture. It's a very helpful tool, and it's one that you could use the rest of your life. Again, it's a Bosch Professional GLM 40. Looks like this. The second thing that you want to consider is what property that you're going to leave behind for a prospective buyer. Now, these are those things that you think about: what is affixed to the property, what is not affixed to the property. Anything that's affixed to the property, which by the way is simply saying it's nailed in, it's screwed in, it's glued on, something like that, that it's attached to the property and meant to be a permanent fixture of that property, generally will convey with the sale. So if you have like great grandma Susie's very special chandelier from the beginning of the Republic of the United States, then that's something that you'd want to take down prior to listing and replace it with a different chandelier or a different type of lighting. Whatever you show in your listing photography is usually best to consider, especially if it's your fixed property, to convey with the sale, unless it's specifically notated underneath your listing agreement with your listing agent of what is being excluded from the sale of your property and what is being included in the sale of your property. Have a conversation with your trusted real estate advisor and make sure that everybody is crystal clear on what stays and what goes. Lastly, we're going to make sure that you actually own this property. So we're going to be balancing that you say that you own a certain property with a tax record, and then the title is going to step in and perform what's called a preliminary title report. We're going to be looking for anything that's going on with your property, from liens and encumbrances and anything else that may affect the sale of this property, so we can disclose this information to you and make provisions for it moving through the closing process. It's better to have foresight into this process to mitigate it up front than to get into the closing process and then be hit out of left field. If you're wondering what a couple of very common liens are, at least here in Las Vegas, Nevada, a lot of times what I do see as liens on property are the trash and the sewer. For some reason, people sometimes forget to pay those bills, or don't pay them, and those must be satisfied, because when you sell your home, you should be transferring free and clear title. And when we're talking about free and clear title, we're talking about free of what's called clouds or defects on the title to the incoming buyer. It must be clean, transferring to the new buyer. So make sure that you're prepared that if there's any liens or encumbrances on the property, that you either work it into the negotiation of who's paying that. Typically, a seller must transfer that as a clear title. So typically, it will be a seller expense to satisfy any said liens. That being said, a lot of things are negotiable. Review your options with your local trusted real estate advisor advisor about how best to sell your home. Given the market conditions and trends, it may or may not work, so be real with yourself on this and plan for it up front. The second thing to consider are the financial arrangements. And you might be saying, Andrew, well, if I'm getting ready to sell a home, why do I need to be concerned about the financial arrangements? Well, there's two things that impact you directly as a seller. Number one, what kind of financing do you want to entertain? And depending on the price point of your home, you may be able to entertain certain financing types, but not others, because they may have a limit on the maximum amount of the loan that they could get, whether it's a VA or an FHA loan. Even if the buyer could qualify for it, they might need to go to a conventional loan or a jumbo loan type product to be able to purchase your home. Know what your financing options are, and a great way to get that conversation started is with a trusted real estate advisor near you. They should know what kind of financing options are available to get your home sold. The more financing options that you're able to open up to, obviously we're increasing the amount of buyers that have the ability to purchase your home. So if you want to accept a VA loan, an FHA loan, a conventional loan, and who doesn't accept cash? Doing so will enable you to have the majority of home buyers that are going to be qualified, ready, willing, and able to purchase your home, to check it out, and have the ability to buy it. Consider your financing options wisely. The second one that you want to consider is, what are you going to be asking about for your earnest money deposit? It's important to note that probably the most simplistic way to understand an earnest money deposit, oftentimes referred to as an acronym EMD, is simply a deposit of good faith. Now, in many cases as it pertains to real estate, this is money, but it could also be a different conversation between you and the buyer, of course, being represented by your agent. You could say, hey, if you give me a pencil, I'll agree to take my house off the market and sell it to you. Yes, you could actually do that. Or a bundle of twigs, like back in the day how real estate got started. One person would literally hand a bundle of twigs to the other, and that's how the property conveyed back in the day. Now, there were no contracts, but still we were using wood, kind of like we do now, for paper. That said, the normal amount that most people will ask for an earnest money deposit is roughly anywhere from 1% to 3% of the sales price of your home. So let's quantify that for you. If your home is going on the market at $500,000, in many cases, a lot of sellers would be requesting between $5,000 and $15,000 for the earnest money deposit. Keep in mind that there's different tactics to this, and there's a trade-off to whether or not those buyers looking at your home are going to have that kind of money that they're comfortable with parting with up front. Generally, a good standard practice is 1% to 1.5% of the sales price. The third thing to prepare for are your inspections and your disclosures. Now, obviously with your inspections, I'm going to throw a pro tip out here for you, and hopefully you'll use it. That pro tip is having what's called a home pre-inspection done. The reason I suggest getting a home pre-inspection done is it will give you the opportunity to correct anything that's going on with that property well ahead of the listing time. Sometimes you hear of a renegotiation taking place whenever properties are being sold, and then the seller ends up accepting a lower price based upon that negotiation because the buyer used a home inspection report to ask for repairs or ask for a reduction in price depending on how severe or substantial those items were in the home inspection. So it's up to you to get this right from the beginning. A very wise practice is to have a home pre-inspection done first. Go ahead and correct everything, keep track of the receipts, the date the work was completed, and make it available to prospective buyers viewing your home. This can simply be done with some marketing material that your trusted real estate advisor can put together for you about why people should buy your home. Now, consider the fact of how you would feel if you were out home shopping, which more than likely you will since you're selling your home, and the seller had done a home pre-inspection. With that home pre-inspection being made available to you upon viewing the property and given to you upon an accepted offer, then would you feel like it was a little bit more transparent? You probably would. Would you feel a little bit more confident that you made the right decision and be comfortable moving forward? You probably would. It's only human nature, right? So use these tactics to your advantage to help you sell your house. Speaking of disclosures, you're going to have what's called a seller's real property disclosure. You want to disclose. Even if it's painful, you want to disclose anything to the best of your knowledge, since the time you have owned that property in many states across the country are disclosable. So what happens if you have Scorpion King coming in and you got scorpions coming in all over the wall, right? Would we want to disclose the fact there's scorpions coming everywhere, even if it's not necessarily a state required disclosure? Yes, we want to do that so the buyer didn't feel jaded, and let them know. Because here's the shocker and here's the reality. A lot of buyers would still be interested in the property if they simply knew up front, oh, okay, so in addition to preparing for my down payment, going through the home inspection process, and my buyer closing costs, one of the things that I'm going to want to do as a homeowner is have a pest control company come out and get rid of those scorpions. If they know that up front, they'll do a lot better with that news. Consider the fact that people do absolutely terrible with no news. They do okay with bad news so long as they know, but when it comes to no news, they do awful. So let's keep it from being awful, and let's keep it transparent to keep everyone on the up and up comfortable and confident moving through every step of the way. Now, for unique disclosures in your location, please talk to your trusted real estate advisor to better understand your local and state disclosures. The fourth thing to be prepared for are the settlement details. Now, these are the details that a purchase offer will contain when an offer is made to you. It will have a date that they made the offer. It'll have a date they're asking to close. You need to ensure that you're ready to perform to the expectations of you as a seller to making the home available for home inspectors, home appraisals if needed, and make sure that you're keeping it clean, removing all debris and trash upon your exit from that property. Now, consider the very real fact it's the polite and right thing to do to ensure that house is clean. How would you feel if you got the keys to your new home and it was dirty? It wouldn't be cool, would it? So let's make sure that we're treating people with the same respect, courtesy, and dignity we would like ourselves. Another thing to consider when it comes to settlement timeframes and you're looking at the closing date. If it's a closing date that doesn't work for you or the closing date that might need to be renegotiated to allow time for additional repairs to be made based upon the home inspection or another situation, it's very simple to have a conversation with your trusted real estate advisor and for them to call the buyer agent representing the buyer. Renegotiate the timeframe that makes sense, make sure everyone's in agreement, and please do get everything in writing when it comes to renegotiations. Anything, even if it's just about leaving the fridge because you decided you wanted to take it initially and you decided ultimately to leave it, then make sure that it's in writing as well so everyone is crystal clear and it keeps everyone honest throughout the process. As you move forward through the closing process, you'll also have what are called an estimated settlement statement and settlement statements. What this means to you as a seller is that the title company is going to be reaching out for you. Initially, they're going to ask for a statement of information so they can verify the ownership of the property. They're going to ask you for your bank information to see if you have net proceeds, if you want that money wired to you, or do you prefer to pick it up with a check or have it mailed to you. Probably one of the bigger things that are going to be of most interest to you are your closing cost as a seller. These now include the real estate commissions, any real property transfer taxes in your area, along with any prorations being made for the utilities. And to better understand how those calculations on prorations work, feel free to contact your escrow or title officer to review that with you. You should have received what's called an estimated net sheet with a breakdown of the cost of selling your property. For instance, if you live in an HOA community, you'll have the cost of a resale package, the cost of transfer. If you have a master plan associated with it, you'll have both the resale package and the cost of transferring again, plus the capital contribution for the incoming buyer. Now, how this gets negotiated in practice depends on the conversation between you and your trusted real estate advisor and the negotiations taking place between you and the buyer, with both agents advocating for their respective clients. One of the other things you want to be very cognizant about is once you have an accepted contract, or sometimes called a ratified agreement between a buyer and a seller, it is now legally binding. You want to make sure that you're performing to the expectations that you have, because the buyer will be performing to the expectations of them as well. Anytime you have any questions about what's going on, please reach out to your listing agent, your trusted real estate advisor, ask them for clarity. For reference, it's standard practice for top agents to be in communication with you a minimum of once per week moving forward while getting your home sold and reporting back to you what activities they are doing to get your home sold and sharing the results of that with you. In addition, they should also be requesting showing feedback from the buyer's agent to share with you so that you can adjust your price accordingly or bring the condition up to such a standard that will cause buyers to want to buy your home. Obviously, there's a lot going on here. So what's the main takeaway from this conversation? The main takeaway is to talk to a trusted real estate advisor near you to understand what the disclosures are in your state and local area, to understand what a listing agreement looks like in those terms that you can negotiate together and have explained to you courtesy of that top listing agent. Now, if you're ready to take a closer look at how the closing process works for a seller, let's go ahead and talk about the overview of the closing process, dig down a little bit deeper with the timeline of selling a home in our next conversations. I'm looking forward to chatting with you soon. See you in a few.